Hey there, Chris Murphy. It's been a very long day today, full of a lot of bullshit, a lot of threats to democracy. And I figured I'd come on and talk to you a little bit about what happened behind the scenes in the United States Senate today, try to help parse out for you what matters and what doesn't matter, and try to connect some of the dots, because obviously a lot is happening right now between the attempted billionaire takeover of our government, the shuttering of government agencies, and then tonight, the cherry on top, Donald Trump's announcement that we are apparently about to occupy Gaza. It's important for us to, be in a conversation about what matters and what doesn't, and what you can do to fight back. I haven't done this format in a long time. I used to do more of this years ago, but it feels like part of my job right now is to be in as many different discussions with all of you as is possible. I feel like in this moment, people, desperately want to plug in. I think there was a lot of folks who were licking wounds. I know a lot of you were just exhausted because you fought your heart out for Kamala or for your favorite candidate for Congress, and you really wondered what had become of this country that they elected Donald Trump knowing exactly who he was. And a lot of you, I know, just stepped back for a little bit. And sometimes that's really necessary, to make yourself healthy, to get your bearings. But our phones have been lighting up just in the last 48 hours. Something has tripped all across the country. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to plug in and help you understand how to be impactful at this moment. So I poured myself a drink. It's pink. It's vodka and grapefruit juice, which I guess some people call a Greyhound. But I definitely needed a drink after today. And I want to help everybody understand the gravity of the situation that we're in today. So here's the stuff that's dominating the headlines. And it's real stuff. It's important. First, you have the shuttering of USAID. This is an agency that protects America all over the globe, that chases terrorists and tries to combat Chinese influence, that helps Ukraine fight against Russia. It saves lives. It responds to famine and pandemic disease. It provides nourishment to babies who are on the verge of death because of malnutrition. And tonight we are learning that it is about to be vanished into thin air. The Trump administration started by freezing all grants. Then they told the Washington staff to stay home. And now apparently they're calling out to all USAID staff around the world and telling them to pack their bags. This is a crisis in and of itself. Second, you've got this theft of our data happening at Treasury. I was over at the Department of Treasury tonight with a bunch of House and Senate colleagues, and it certainly does appear like Elon Musk and his creepy band of 22-year-old henchmen have access to all of our financial information, our tax returns, our Social Security accounts, your Medicaid and Medicare information. This is a catastrophe. And then the backdrop of all of this is Trump's attempt to just shut down all federal spending, to shut down the entire federal government, and then the court orders that have been issued stopping him from doing that. And I guess I want to make the case tonight that this is all one thing. And actually, his announcement tonight that we're going to occupy Gaza is also part of the same thing. And so what is it? The thing that we are focused on is the billionaire takeover of government in order to steal from you, to enrich the billionaire class. And it is all part of that same story. Layered on top of that is an assault on democracy and the rule of law. That is intended to take away from all of us the ability to dissent and protest the billionaire theft of our salaries, our Medicare accounts, our paychecks. Okay? And what I want to talk to you all about tonight is the fact that they can't beat us. They think they can. These tech bros have so much hubris. They are so full of themselves. Donald Trump is so full of himself, having gotten away with what he's gotten away with, that they think they can pull off the biggest scam ever perpetuated on Americans. They think that they can literally take over the United States government, the billions of dollars that flow through the United States government, and they can just steal it all for the billionaire class. And they can do it in a way that won't allow us to object. They're wrong. We still have more of us than them. We still have the power of our voices. We are not devoid of power in the United States Senate. Oh, that was pretty cool. Did I just do that with my thumbs? See, it's been a while since I've been on Instagram Live. And so I want to give you some confidence and some optimism tonight that what is happening right now as Americans are rising up and saying no, it matters. It matters. It is not too late to make sure that our billionaire class doesn't get away with this thievery. Okay, so let me start by talking about what's happened writ large across the government. So Trump comes in and he says, listen, we're just freezing all government spending. And for a day, he froze all government spending, including Medicaid. The court stepped in, within 24, 48 hours, said that is totally unconstitutional. Congress decides how money is spent. The president cannot interrupt all government spending, all government contracts. Why is Trump doing this? It's so important to always ask the why. And so here's my answer. And I hope that you listen to the case I'm making, because I think there's truth here. What Trump wants to do is take control of all federal spending so that he can use spending to reward his friends and to punish his enemies. Because all Trump cares about, right, is loyalty. And so if he controls the spending and not Congress, then he can use the power of the Treasury to essentially make people swear loyalty oaths to him, to give money only to nonprofits or government programs or states or congressional districts that say, I'm on board with whatever you want, Donald Trump. And then he can withhold money from states or congressional districts or nonprofits that don't swear loyalty pledges to him. What does he want? Well, he wants permanent power. The Trump family wants permanent power. They want Donald Trump to finish out his term, maybe get a third term. They want Eric and Donald Jr. to follow suit. And so the only way that they get to stay in power is to essentially destroy the Constitution, to destroy dissent. And one of the ways they do that is by seizing control of federal spending so that they can use it like a king uses it to punish enemies and reward friends. Now, the specific friends they want to reward happen to be their billionaire, millionaire Mar-a-Lago friends. So let me guarantee you that none of Elon Musk's contracts are going to stay suspended for long. Elon Musk's competitors' contracts will probably stay suspended for a long time. So what you're going to have is not just the use of our public funds in order to try to suppress dissent and reward loyalists. You're also going to just have the transfer of money to the billionaires and the millionaires that surround Donald Trump. Okay. The second thing they've done is to shutter USAID. So how does that fit into the story here? Well, it fits into the story because one billionaire in particular, the guy who's running the show right now, Elon Musk, needs to take control of America's foreign policy in order to pad his pockets. He gets tons of government contracts, so he obviously wants to make sure that he keeps his defense contracts and his space contracts, and he expands those contracts. But people don't know this. Musk makes half his cars in China, and his biggest non-American market isn't Europe, it's China. But he's in a row with China right now because right now China is not allowing him to market his self-driving vehicle, and they're trying to give advantage to their domestic self-driving product. And the Chinese are also at war with him when it comes to his boring company and his other burgeoning tech companies. So he needs to be in favor with the Chinese government. Well, how do you get in quick favor with the Chinese government? You dismantle the agency that is the biggest thorn in the side of the Chinese, and that is USAID. What does USAID do? It contests China all over the world when China is trying to gain influence in Africa and in South America. USAID goes in and says, listen, you don't need to rely on the Chinese to solve your problems. You can trust the United States to help you run a port, or to help you take on a virulent disease, or to help you get access to clean water. And so by contesting Chinese influence, we're checking the ability of China to command the rules of the global economy. So Musk can do a nice favor to the Chinese by shutting down USAID, and in turn, maybe Elon Musk gets better, more favorable treatment from the Chinese government. So the USAID thing, probably has a lot of elements to it, but it is part of the story about the capture of U.S. policy for the benefit only of the billionaire class. Okay, and lastly, what's going on at Treasury? So this is the thing that has really set folks on fire, because we found out this weekend that Elon Musk and his 22-year-old crowd of sycophants have gotten into the Department of Treasury and have taken control of a key data system that controls all the payments that the federal government makes. Your refund check, your Social Security check, your Medicare benefit, every contract that is paid by the federal government. And so why does Musk and why does Trump want control of that system? The same reason why they shut off all government funding. They want to be able to turn on money to people that are loyal to them and turn off money that aren't loyal. And listen, I don't want to overhype this or engage in scare tactics, but literally every worst case scenario has come true thus far. So why wouldn't you believe that Musk would be patrolling his own site, Twitter, and other social media sites to see what people are saying about him? And why wouldn't you believe that if he has control over who gets a tax refund or who gets a Social Security benefit, that you might suddenly have your refund delayed or suspended if you were too critical of him online or on his platform? I know that that sounds dystopian, but this is not normal to have unelected billionaires in control of our payment system. Normally, the Department of Treasury, there's like 5 people who have access to the system, and none of them are political appointees. They're all career civil servants. Why? Because you do not want the political class, never mind the billionaire class, having access to the question of who gets Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or tax refunds. So you got to fit this all into the same story. Trump is trying to seize control of federal contracts, of the Treasury's payment system, and of foreign policy, along with Elon Musk, in order to be able to run a loyalty pledge game and to be able to steal for themselves. Because in the end, their only legislative priority is a giant tax cut for Musk, the other billionaires, their corporate friends. And they can go 2 ways about it. They can just borrow all the money to fund this tax giveaway, or they could go into the Department of Treasury payment system and just start shutting down payments to ordinary Americans. They could keep Head Start programs closed. They could stop paying Medicare benefits. And they could then claim that they have saved all of this money by screwing regular Americans, so that they now have plenty of resources to fund another massive tax break and giveaway to billionaires, millionaires, and corporations. So this is all part of the same story, and it's really important to understand it that way. But then let me bring in what happened just an hour ago. So I was going to do an appearance on CNN tonight to talk about this coordinated campaign of theft. And I was sitting in front of the camera with the earpiece in my ear, watching Trump's press conference with Netanyahu. And I, at this point, realized that I was probably not going to be talking about the crisis at the Treasury Department. I was probably going to be responding to this press conference. But I got the chance to listen to it in real time. And many of you know what was said there. Donald Trump announced that the United States was going to invade Gaza. He announced that the United States was going to take over Gaza, level it, purge it, and cleanse it of the 2 million Palestinians who live there and rebuild it into something beautiful. Now, that is the most offensive thing that I have heard in the last 2 hours, because there are crazy offensive things coming out of this White House multiple times a day. It is also the most dangerous thing that Donald Trump has maybe ever proposed, because you go into Gaza with U.S. troops. You are talking about thousands of U.S. casualties, decades of war in Gaza. It's a cataclysm. But here's the news. It's not real. It's not real. The United States is not invading, occupying, leveling, and rebuilding Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want that. No Middle Eastern leader wants that. Donald Trump has no intent on carrying that plan forward. What he wants is for you to be distracted. What he wants is for the media to be distracted. What he wants is for the chattering class to be distracted for the next 24, 48, 72 hours, so we don't talk about the real story, which is the billionaire takeover of government in order to steal from you to pad their pockets. So it is really important for us to fight the fights that matter, and to understand that sometimes you just have to ignore the bullshit from Donald Trump. And the thing about the Panama Canal, bullshit. Invading Greenland, bullshit. Occupying Gaza, bullshit. Okay, it doesn't mean that you don't take a heartbeat to call it out as ridiculous, but it means that tomorrow we have to get back to the work of getting Elon Musk out of the Treasury Department. It means tomorrow we have to get to the work of frustrating their plan to seize government spending so that they can raid the Treasury to pass a billionaire and millionaire tax cut. And I appreciate, I'm reading all your comments here, and I appreciate the fact that you get this, right? I think we're learning, right? And I can literally see you learning in real time that these are distractions. And sometimes it's hard to know, right? Because what a mistake we'd make if the imminent invasion of Gaza wasn't a distraction and we didn't talk about it, and then all of a sudden hundreds of thousands of Americans are dying there. But I was on the Senate floor tonight, and it's sad to me how few of my Republican colleagues take any of this seriously. But let me guarantee you, none of them were taking seriously the invasion of Gaza. They were all talking to each other about getting the last few votes on their terrible nominees and lining up this big tax cut for billionaires and millionaires. And so I'm confident that this is not something that you have to worry about, and that tomorrow we have to get back to the work of taking on Musk and the billionaires. But let me just leave you with this. And AOC did a wonderful job, I think it was last night, laying out for you why none of us are helpless, and we aren't. We aren't helpless. Tonight we did a protest outside of the Treasury Department, and it was noticed by the groups that were running it, Move On, Indivisible, a handful of others, just like a couple hours beforehand. And I thought maybe there was going to be, there's going to be 100, 200 people there. But there were 1,000 plus people there, and it was growing and growing. Literally, as we were speaking, it was 500, it was 1,000. Who knows how many people were there? The police ultimately had to shut down the street. It wasn't main intersections in downtown DC. They just had to shut it down because there were so many people there. And it got me remembering 2017. Okay. What was the number one agenda in 2017 for Trump in his first term? The repeal of the Affordable Care Act. Is the Affordable Care Act gone? No, It's not. It's still there. Despite the fact that it was their number one agenda item, we stopped it. We stopped it. You and I, all of us, we stopped it. And we stopped it not because we convinced Trump to give up on it, not because we convinced Republicans to give up on it, but because we convinced three Republicans to say no. And so if you want to stop the billionaire takeover of government, if you want to stop this big tax cut that's coming down the pike, if you want to stop RFK Jr., if you want to stop Tulsi Gabbard, you don't need 20 Republicans. You need a handful. And so what we did in 2017 was we just raised the volume level on the disaster, the political and policy and moral disaster that would occur if the Affordable Care Act was repealed. And we were all over. Like, you guys were calling every single day to Democrats and Republicans. You were showing up to town halls. Remember those town halls in 2017 that we were having? Thousands of people were showing up. You were coming to Washington. You were part of the Women's March. You were part of subsequent protests specifically on the Affordable Care Act. And ultimately, that had an impact in two ways. One, it ultimately convinced just enough Republicans to say no. But second, it convinced a bunch of other Republicans who were going to vote yes to do it quietly, to do it kind of sheepishly. And so what you're trying to do on all of this is turn a couple votes, but then try to depress the advocacy of other Republicans. So on our legislative strategy, we still have an opportunity to defeat this billionaire tax cut that's coming down the pike that is likely going to be paired with massive cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, but only if we raise the volume level. So that means that you have to go out and join either local or national groups. Move On and Indivisible are great examples, who are organizing these actions at the local level and the national level. It really does make a difference. I'm telling you, in 2017, Republicans got cold feet because they saw the volume level that we had organized around protesting the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. And just enough of them decided that they were scared about what that would mean for them electorally, that they either gave up and voted no, or they just lowered their volume level. Okay? That's one thing that we can do. The second thing we can do is continue to press in the court system. So we're going to continue to file lawsuits against these illegal actions. There are all sorts of ways in which you can write small donation checks to help these lawsuit efforts. We had a conversation tonight, about 8 o'clock on the floor of the Senate about how we can legally intersect with some of the lawsuits that are being brought. For instance, it's pretty clear to me that Trump is in violation of the court orders telling him to restart all of these government programs. You probably heard today that Head Start programs are once again turned off. Well, Senate Democrats are in a position to go out and help survey not-for-profit states, municipalities to build the evidence that the steel is still on. That will help the court case. So we can all assist in the legal strategy with small donations to groups like Democracy Forward, which are bringing these lawsuits, or the work that we can do to try to help build their case. And then lastly, there's just the work that we have to do, right? There's the work that we have to do. And I get it. I have a just different obligation. You all play a huge role in raising the temperature, but I've got this job in the United States Senate. And the question is, what do we do about it? Here's sort of my simple take on what we do in the Senate right now. I'm not going to vote for one single nominee that Trump puts forward so long as this corruption still exists. I'm just drawing a line, and I'm encouraging my colleagues to draw that line as well. And so we, I think, need to use our voices in the Senate to make it as hard as possible for them to be able to populate the administration with folks who are going to facilitate this corruption. Down the line, do I reserve the ability, if things get normal again, to vote for a Trump nominee here or there that I think is qualified? Sure, but not right now. Not right now. Well, this theft is not right now. Well, Elon Musk has access to all of your data. Not right now. Well, USAID is being defunded and China and Russia are celebrating all around the world. Not right now. Well, Trump is violating these court orders. We can also be clear that we're not going to help Republicans move to any legislation until this crisis is solved. Now, I think we made a mistake a couple weeks back. The first agenda item out of the gate was the Lake and Riley Act. Republicans had this really terrible bill to lock up tens of thousands of nonviolent migrants and to gum up the works of the immigration system with a series of lawsuit rights. That bill passed because Democrats joined Republicans in passing it. Now, I voted against it because I thought it was a terrible piece of legislation, but I also voted against it because I saw the early signs of the thievery of the constitutional crisis, and I just did not think that we should be acting like there's business as usual happening on the Senate floor. And so that should be our operating modality right now. That Democrats do not give votes to Republicans because you need 60 votes to proceed to legislation until this constitutional crisis, until this theft of your data and your money is over. Now, has every Senate Democrat come to that conclusion yet? No, but we are almost there. It used to be that there were 20 or 30 Democrats voting for nominees. Today, that number, I think, is 2 or 3 or 4. So we are growing in our unity, and between your advocacy, the legal strategy, and our ability to deal consequences to these complicit Republicans on the Senate floor, we have the power to turn this back, to make Republicans pay a price for this turnover of government to the billionaire class, and ultimately to make them pay a price in elections. So listen, I just wanted to, I talked so much that I didn't even have an opportunity to drink with you, but I wanted to just be able to talk to you a little bit tonight about viewing all of these disparate crises through the same prism, right? Just say it again. It is all about stealing from you to reward the billionaires, an oligarchy, a kleptocracy, right? A government in which there's a small class of very powerful economic elites that rule, and government is just a means by which to funnel money to them. Now, somebody just asked a good question, and it was something I meant to cover, and so I'll leave you with this. What's coming next from Republicans? Somebody just said, what about the Department of Education? Same story. So I posted on social media last night, or maybe it was this morning. I really have no idea any longer. Like the days, nights, the mornings kind of blend together because we're doing this 24/7. But I posted something on social media the other day about the private equity industry beginning to make a big play in education. And what does that mean? Well, some of it is private equity investing in what they call ed tech companies that provide technologies that classrooms use. But some of it is actually simpler. Private equity starting to buy schools. And so why do Republicans want to shutter the Department of Education? They'll tell you it's because we want local control of schools. Bullshit. That's not why this is happening. Yes, there are some Republicans that don't want the federal government to play any role in schools. Yes, there are some Republicans that want to obliterate our civil rights protections, and the only way that we really adequately protect kids in schools is through the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Education. But it's really about the money. It's always about the money, right? What they want to do is privatize our school system, privatize our elementary schools, privatize our middle schools, privatize our high schools, and sell them off to the highest bidder. And so it is not a coincidence that there are stories in business publications about the private equity industry starting to marshal funds around a big investment in education at the same time that the Trump administration is proposing to destroy the Department of Education and privatize all public education, because it's all the same story. Taking government and turning it into a fountain of profit, a source of profit for the richest individuals in the country. Remember, the people that run these hedge funds, they are not like you and me. I'm not complaining. I make more than the average American. But the people who run these hedge funds, like their biggest problem every day is like whether they buy the third yacht or which private school that costs $60,000 their kindergartner is going to attend. These hedge fund owners don't have the same problems as you and I, but the whole construction of the Trump administration is an effort to steal from us to enrich them. So the Department of Education shutdown is about a bunch of things, but at its heart, it's about the money. It's about our school system being the last bastion of public service that has not been privatized yet. And these greedy investors, these billionaires, these multimillionaires, they can't stand it. They can't stand it that there is one last true public service. I guess they still have fire and police protection, but that'll come next as well. They've taken over our defense industry. They've taken over our healthcare industry, and now they want our kids' schools. So that's what's coming next, maybe as early as later this week. But again, view it through the same prism. Elon Musk wants USAID destroyed, in part so that he can get on China's good side to be able to make more money. Trump wants all federal spending shut down so that he can control it and give contracts to his billionaire friends and keep them away from his average, ordinary, everyday political opponents. Elon Musk wants your information at Treasury, one, so that he can just steal your money, your refunds, your benefits, so that he can fund the tax cut for billionaires and millionaires, but also so that he can potentially, along with Donald Trump, reward friends and punish enemies. And the best way to do that is to withhold your money until you line up and pledge loyalty. So it's all part of the same story, but none of us are powerless. This story is not done, right? It's just the beginning of the story. If we rise up, if we start showing up, we have not just the possibility, but we have the power and the likelihood of success, of stopping this billionaire takeover, this theft from ordinary Americans in its tracks. All right, tell me if this is useful. I'm going to scroll through these comments. Tell me, if this is helpful, because I'll, try to do this on a semi-regular basis, try to give you a little bit of insight into what's happening in the Senate so we can be communicating in real time about how we organize to protect this country, protect our democracy. Thanks, everybody.